let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaming and everything in its orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it.
Tim Tam.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about mentorship, which is something that I think is severely lacking, not just in this community, but in every community all over the world.
You know, I feel like we make a lot of inferences to mentorship. I feel like we sort of thrown out a couple of jabs at the sort of generalized process of the world and sort of insinuated this wouldn't be happening if we had better mentorship. But I also feel like there is the sort of worrying theme of the term mentorship going the same route as like woke or trauma or triggered, where it's like it just becomes like a buzzword.
Yeah.
It doesn't effectively mean anything anymore. This is just one of those things, right? Where it's like we say we want it, we can acknowledge we're not having it, but also like just the concept of like what it is and how that could look in the gaming community, I think is just like largely untouched. So I feel like we can kind of like explore all those different little niche, little avenues, little slipstreams, little morsel, things. So sort of kicking things off then, how do you define mentorship?
I would say that mentorship is someone who has, it's generally going to be someone who's older than you, who has experienced perhaps a bit more by that point in their life. Maybe they have had some successes and some failures that have both been like really high successes and then getting knocked on their ass. Or maybe they've been in a particular scene a lot longer. You know, they've seen things happen, people come and go, and they generally have maybe a more relaxed approach or opinion to things. Because like when you're young and you got the hormones racing, nobody can tell you anything. You think you got the answers to all of it. You're like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to kick ass, I'm going to take names, I'm going to fucking crush life. And then life crushes you. And then when you pick yourself up, you're looking around and like, well, how come nobody warned me about this? And then you've got a couple of people standing off to the side who may be, about 10 years older than you. Maybe one of them is smoking a cigarette, like me, and going, well, we tried to tell you, but you didn't listen.
I mean, that's the perfect analogy for like my life. Sometimes I'm in the mud, I look around and there's you smoking a fag off the side, like, try to warn you, girl. I tried to tell you. I feel like I would define it quite similarly. I wanted to Google it as well. It's defined primarily as the guidance provided by a mentor, especially an experienced person in a company or educational institution, or mentorship, a period of time during which a person receives guidance from a mentor, right? So then I go mentor meaning an experienced and trusted advisor, or to advise and train someone, especially a younger colleague, an experienced person in a company or educational institution who trains and counsels new employees or students, right? So apparently it's a mid-18th century word via the French and Latin from Greek mentor, which is the name of the advisor of the young Telemachus in Homer's Odyssey.
Okay.
There you go. So, kind of going on a bit of a trip there with the word, but it essentially means person who's got a bit of something under their belt, giving back to someone who does not have that thing to help them make better informed decisions. And, I think that relates so much to how human progress has happened over our species' existence. Once upon a time, we figured out how to use fire and use basic tools to create agriculture and to make farming be a thing. And then over time, we've improved on processes, taught people those processes so they don't have to continue working with primitive tools. And then that's helped move things along to the point now where we don't even need to bother with all that, because we are just up here in this like upper echelon of how we produce our food, how we do science, how we do art, how we do everything that we do. So I think mentorship is basically the same thing. Yes, as a young person, by the time you're at that sort of age, like 16 to 21, where you're maybe looking for a bit of life guidance, like you maybe know as much as other 16 to 21-year-olds who've come before you, the amount of wisdom and advice I think a good mentorship program can impart in you can be exponentially better, because someone gives you 10 units of advice in that age bracket, you have an extra 10 units of advice. You then go through life, and when you're at that same position of mentorship, you don't have 10 units of advice to give. You've actually got 30, because you were able to skip all those steps and learn some extra shit along the way. Then when you pass that mentorship back, you get to give someone else 30. That next person who comes up, they've got an extra 30 units. By the time they're in your position, they've got 70 units, and so on and so forth. So I think it's really important, kicking off this conversation, to create a framework of understanding. What we're talking about here is not necessarily someone who, like, I don't know, like, come and pick me up from the club because I'm too drunk to get myself home.
Oh, yeah, not a guardian.
Yeah, we're not talking that. We're talking someone who can actually really invest some good shit into your life. And from the particular context of queerness, right? Because yes, gaining, but to kind of keep it open a little bit for now, I think the queer experience could really do with a dose of mentorship. And I know we've talked about that before. I mean, Tim, your feelings, share.
Well, we talked about how we thought that the reason why there seems to be a lack of it in the queer community is because, so how can I articulate this? So if you take, like, my late husband, he was 51 when he passed, right? He and his peer group were coming out into the gay world, right? I guess it may be the midpoint or possibly the end of the AIDS crisis. Or no, I mean, it hasn't ended, but I'm saying, like, the huge numbers had really started to dwindle by the time the 1990s came around. It was still a big problem, but people weren't dying in droves yet. And, they had lost to the generation previous to them to the AIDS epidemic, because that was the age group that was dying off really quickly. My late husband's generation would have been Generation X, which is known for being ridiculously self-indulgent. And I feel like, because I've seen a lot of his peers die, I've seen them die not from disease, but from drug usage and the complications that come from that. I don't know. There's just this huge gap where young queer kids today don't have anyone to look at. They have us. They have the millennials now. Millennial queers are now reaching the mentor age for the Gen Z queers.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why I think we didn't have a whole lot of it. There were still some that were left over. You and I both had mentors from those generations.
Yes.
But
and I've spoken about this man before, who has sadly passed, and he was one of those people who just, oh my gosh, if I could have a hug from him, I think I'd weep, because I do think about him at times, especially when certain things happen in life, and you think to those key people who just, I really wish I could go to you, like, not someone, I wish I could go to you with this thing that's happening, and I wish I could just get your words on it, but hey ho, that is unfortunately life. These things happen. And I think I'm certainly, because I'm turning 30 this year, I'm certainly of that age bracket where, like, I recognize that there are kids who look at me and they go, you're a parent now, you're an adult, because I'm the kid and you're the grown-up, and I'm sat there looking at my, like, filth. Like, shit, like, these kids do not know. Oh my god, it's quite terrifying to be on the other.
Don't go looking in daddy's closet.
It's a little bit of, like, and I think other people in my age bracket really experience this. It's a sense of, like, I'm still a kid. I'm still a kid who, like, was told the world was going to be a certain type of way. There'd be houses, there'd be jobs, there'd be opportunities. I'm still waiting for the bubble to burst. I'm still waiting for shit.
But it hasn't burst for you?
Oh, no, not so much that. I'm waiting for those opportunities to come along. But I'm finding that, I'm at that age where it's like, oh, I guess I'm here. It doesn't look or feel anything like what I thought it would look like. And it's weird. It's a weird place to be.
So you didn't get disillusioned around 25?
Oh, baby, I think my life trauma means I was disillusioned around 12. You know,
Okay, I was about to say because I got pretty good in my disillusionment around 25.
no, I think my problem is, I've always sort of learned to cling to something as like my sort of way forward. Like, don't give up now. There's better things to come, and then it's never as good as promised. But like when you sort of
Well,
step,
what is?
well, But I digress. What I'm recognizing is I'm at that age bracket where, I thought I would have another mentor. I thought I would have more opportunities to be young and make mistakes and be told otherwise and learn from things. But it very much feels like, no, no, no. I'm at that age where people are like, you're an adult. This is it for you. There is no more. There is only you. You pass it backwards now. And I'm like,
Yes.
well. Anyways, so that's kind of where I'm at. It's a bit of a melange, shall we say, of emotional detritus that we're navigating.
I think a big part of wanting of needing the mentorship, and also the reason why I'm feeling like I want to do that, is because I don't know if you're familiar with Erikson. I can't remember if that's his first name or last name, and this is bad because I did take a course on psychology, but he was a psychologist who believed in social and psychological stages of development in your life. And at certain points in your life, you have a goal to achieve, and then you have like the opposite of that goal.
Okay.
So for young adulthood, you have intimacy versus isolation. So a lot of young people, like let's say 18 to 26, they're looking for intimacy with anyone. Like, why are your 20s usually your wild and crazy years where you kick up your heels and fuck? You're looking to make intimate connections with people. I think by that age you realize that life can be fleeting in some circumstances, so you want to make as many emotional connections as you can. And the opposite of that would be then isolation, like you're making no connections with anyone at all. You're feeling like you're alone in the world. For people that are entering my age bracket, we're dealing with generativity versus stagnation. We're getting to a point in our lives where, what are we going to give back? What is the mark we're going to leave? What is the thing that we're going to have to be remembered by? If I were to drop dead tomorrow, what would people remember me for? Did I do anything with my life? Did I help anyone? Did I make an impression on anyone? Because the opposite of that is then stagnation. You're not doing anything at all. You're not helping anyone. You're not really helping the world. You're just being very self-centered again. It's all about me. I don't care about anyone else. So I think that I am right in the middle of the generativity versus stagnation part of my life, and I have felt the need to try and get back because I don't know if I will have children. I don't. The closest that I can get to that right now is trying to help anyone who comes to me with advice about life, gaining, being kinky, anything that they want to know. Like if I can speak on it, I will.
Yeah. And you and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, but in some regards, I treat you as a bit of a mentor. Not in much the same capacity, like not to say like an official mentor, like it's a contract.
Yeah.
I think certainly the mentor that I've had in the past, there was certainly a sense that, for him and I, we would hang out, we'd be sociable with each other, we'd enjoy each other's company. But, there was always this sort of presumed understanding that, I would probably come to him with a little bit of emotional distress or a little bit of a struggle. And this is a little bit of, not to say the purpose of our relationship, but it was a core tenet of our relationship that I came to him with my baggage and he helped me to unpack it, basically. And, you do that more from a friend perspective, but, we've had this conversation. There is a slight element to which we kind of go, you've had certain queer experiences more than what I have. And it's wonderful to learn them through your lens. And maybe we train each other a little bit in that way. You get a taste for, getting the opportunity to mentor the way you want. I get a little bit of that sense of wanting to be mentored, like how I've wanted, So I think it's beautiful that we get to do. But
to put it out there for people, like if you need if you're looking for a mentor, like I can't help you with anything to do with finances. I can't tell you how to purchase your first house. I can't tell you how to like refinance your car or any of that shit. If you want to know a little bit of queer history, if you want to know, random and unimportant details about something that happened 500 years ago, I probably can be a wellspring of knowledge for you there. I'm a very specific mentor. Like, you can come to me for, you want to know about old Hollywood? I have been introducing James to many classic films over the years that we've known each other now, and some of them he's honest to God loved, and it's like I would watch that again right now.
Oh my god, Auntie Mame. Oof. Life is a banquet and some poor suckers are starving, so let's live, live, live.
I did it. I lived.
I lived. Mrs. Dennis. Oh god. No, absolutely. What a great film. But and I think what you were saying there, like I'm a mentor for specific things, that's exactly what a mentor is. Because a mentor that's meant to cover all areas of your life is a parent.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. A parent is meant to be the one, like when you are a 2-year-old, they show you how to wipe your asshole and how to like clean your genitals. You know what I mean? It's like they're the people who have to show you every gritty thing, because they're like, listen, I'm the parent, I birthed you, I made you, I have to teach you how to look after you. Christ. Mm-hmm. But a mentor is literally meant to be about those specific things. And so when we talk about this queer thing, we are looking specifically at people who, maybe career-wise, maybe financially, that part doesn't necessarily matter, but life experience is really where it comes in. And with gaining, it's much the same. When you look for a mentor, it's looking for people who are established, people who have achieved, people who have done the thing properly, and people who have something to say. I mean, in a way, that's a little bit of what this whole podcast is about. It's about people who have experienced, sharing their experiences so that you listening who do not know and who have not experienced can gain some insight. That's literally what this whole thing is about. But mentorship is that thing. So similarly, if you're looking for a mentor with regards to things like career, don't look to people in different industries. Look to people in the industry you want to work in. If you're looking for a mentor on finance, baby, don't look at the person who has a gambling problem. Don't look at the person who struggles with their finances. Go and find someone who is wealthy and has a great budgeting scheme. Like, talk to people and like actually ask the question and just be like, listen, I've done some research on you. I've thought about this. I wanted to ask, would you consider being a sort of mentor for me in this kind of regard? Guarantee you it will blow people's minds that you would think of them that way. And I imagine the majority of people would jump at the chance and just be like, yes, thank you for seeing me and respecting what I have achieved in my life and honoring me by asking me to speak insight into your life.
I should have mentioned, I can mentor you in the field of nursing. Like, say if you are fresh out of school, you have a lot of questions you don't really understand, like how to, like, I can certainly help there. I mean, and when I was a green nurse, fresh out of getting my license, like it was those older, crabbier, bitchier, gruffer nurses that took me under their wing. And like, because I'll say this, like, as bitchy and as mean as a nurse may look, inside they're a total marshmallow. They just have to do that bitchy exterior so that they don't get hurt, because you're in a profession where people physically assault you, verbally degrade you, cover you in their body fluids, and then your higher ups completely ignore you when you're drowning in work. So, No,
thank you. Not for me at the very least.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of rule with mentorship, And I think another way of looking at it, it's like a teacher. You are looking for a teacher, and not a teacher to teach you maths, but in the case of finance, you're looking for a teacher who will teach you specifically financial management, financial control, and skills, and investment, and all of those types of things. Again, look for someone who knows what they're talking about. Like, when you looked at schools, like maybe you didn't bother looking at like high schools for this, but like if you wanted to go to college or university, you probably were like, oh, if I want to learn about being a nurse, I've got to look at the best colleges around that provide for nursing. I could go anywhere to do nursing, but it's probably in my best interest to look at the one that has the greatest ratings, the greatest turnout, the best teachers, because I will get the best information and the best training there. And mentorship is the same, So But I think that gives a good framework and groundwork for like what it is, what we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah, I think we've covered it.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, have you been mentored in your own life from that queer perspective?
Oh, specifically from a queer perspective.
Well, from a because you mentioned the nursing, which I think is
Yeah.
great, but from a queer perspective, have you been mentored?
Yes. Now it did come in some indirect ways, and it happened a little bit later. Like I think I may have been around 28 or 29 when I really like was able to speak to people that had gone through those experiences. Like I met one of my friends, whom I affectionately call the oldest homosexual in Cleveland, is because he's like almost 90 at this point, and he has been through it all. He was in San Francisco like when the AIDS crisis was happening. He was part of ACT UP. He was part of the marches and the protests, and I think he even marched at DC a couple of times. And like, so this is a man who has seen shit happen, you know and he's a total sweetheart. Nothing ruffles his feathers. He's been living with HIV for 50 years or something like that, and he's still good. He's still in good health. I mean, yeah, he's an octogenarian at this point. So like his body is degrading, but like his health is still generally okay for his age group. And he was a great person to talk to about, this kind of thing. And he had great stories to just, because you get to a certain age, you just start telling people stories whether they want to hear it or not. And he's one of those people. Another great mentor for me was a man who sadly passed away. He was a local bar owner, and he was just such a wonderful guy. He was beautiful. I mean, he was Greek. He was beautiful. He was muscular. He had let himself go a little bit later in life. So, he was starting to form that lovely paunch, but he still had all these muscles and everything. And he was always like a big bear hug. It was like every time you saw him, it was like this crushing bear hug because he cared that much about you. And he was someone who didn't necessarily teach me anything specifically or have any specific stories for me, but just watching him, I was like, this is the kind of person I want to be. Like, established, successful, threatened by absolutely nothing, and has all the confidence in the world.
It's interesting. It kind of makes you reflect. You mentioned about the oldest gay in Cleveland. That thing with Erik Erikson, those 8 stages of development, and how in your age bracket you're kind of in that point of generativity. Sorry, I think it was generativity versus stagnation.
Stagnation, yeah.
And how I believe at their age, is it?
It's ego integrity versus despair.
Right. So it's interesting you mentioned like they'll tell stories whether you want to hear them or not. And I think to myself, I wonder if this is an example of like mentorship as like a normal facet of the human experience, that we want to do this. But when we treat our elderly like they're senile, stupid, ain't got nothing good to tell us, they'll tell anyone who listens stories about life and lessons and shit. I mean, they are desperate for mentees, and people just don't want to hear it.
It's the old it's the bard around the fire. We've lost that in society. We don't have the storyteller near the fireplace anymore. That is what I think is kind of a natural progression. And funny enough, you and I have been watching an amazing TV show that was written by an amazing author named Neil Gaiman, who specifically said we owe it to each other to tell stories. That is part of the human experience. So yeah, I do think it's a natural progression to want to do that. I volunteered some stories on you without you asking for them. Like, it's happened. It's just stuff that you feel passionately about it. You want to talk about it. You hope somebody will glean something from what you said. And, so, I mean, we mentor people without even realizing half the time.
I mean, even in the movies that you show me, and I think this is actually a big way that you mentor is it. And I think I'm the same. When I try to communicate like ideas, experiences, theories, I do a lot of it through media, like memes, images, videos, shit like that. And I think you do a lot of it through your like filmic tastes. So even films that you shared with me that I haven't enjoyed as much, like the movie Camp, you still took the time to really sit me down, despite my chagrin, and really help me to understand, like, this is what this represents for me. Like, it really represents this era of my own life in which, summertime and camp really represented potential and endless possibility, and it was connecting with people in a flash pan situation and never knowing if you were going to see them again, but they are memories that stay with you for life. And it's still quite a beautiful thing, even if I didn't enjoy the film, if it didn't resonate with me, to still learn that aspect of you. It's a beautiful thing to learn more about you in that kind of a way. And in giving that example, dear listener, I want to kind of communicate this idea, because I think when we think mentorship or we think teaching, it's like in a formalized setting where it's like, sit down, I will tell you, I'll put shit up on the whiteboard. Like, no, a lot of it is just through like conversation and like listening, and it's holding space for one another, and it's humanity, and it's all that good shit. So you may be in a mentorship situation with someone and not even realize it.
Yeah, that's totally possible.
Like, oh, this is happening. Like, so there you go. But kind of coming back to more the sort of asking you questions about things, how do you feel, just like summing it up, how do you feel like the mentorship you've experienced has impacted you?
I feel like how can I put this? So if I flash back to 21-year-old me, I was pretty damn insecure about everything, from my looks to my body to the state of my life. I was a wallflower. If I went out in a public place, I was the type that found a corner or somewhere that was a little bit more out of the way, where people weren't going to see me, stand there, drink all night, watch the drag show or whatever's going on, not speak to anybody, and then leave. And, being around older queer people, listening to their conversations, getting involved in the leather community, like I've said, helped a lot too. Just realizing that I was standing in my own way, and that I wasn't having fun or being a secure person because I was allowing it to be that way. And it changed it just changed a lot for me. There's been kind of a perfect storm of different things that have happened to me over the years that have culminated in who I am now. And a lot of it had to do with people that I was sometimes not forced to be around, but just like I'd wind up around these people, like my late husband, when we would go out, he would leave me by myself all the time. He'd just be gone, like social butterfly, off doing his thing. Like I wouldn't see him until we left, So I had to either seek out my own company, or I would just sort of congregate with people who also looked like they weren't fitting in. So it was a lot. It was a lot of nights of that. It was getting involved in the other community, and it was just embracing me and who I am and what I love. And to be completely honest, after being with my late husband, like nothing can affect me anymore. Like he was the last person who could push my buttons that bad.
From your perspective, do you feel like the gaming community would benefit from some more mentorship?
I think it would. I think that it would benefit from so gainers that maybe have been around a little bit longer. I don't necessarily think that we're going to be great at giving you gaining tips and advice and like, oh, if you eat this food, if you do this particular thing, if you buy this supplement, if you do that, then you will just achieve the body you want. No, but I do think that, we could benefit the younger members by like, okay, the first thing you're going to have to do really is just accept that this is what you're into. If this is what makes you happy, if being a gainer or an encourager, an admirer, an enthusiast, whatever it is what brings you joy, you have to embrace it. Because how many times do we see, younger people, they appear on the site, then they disappear, then they reappear, then they disappear. They're like the wind. They're here one minute, they're gone the next, and it's like a lot of times when they come back, they're like, yeah, I'm kind of hemming and hawing about this. I don't know if I'm really into it. Like I'm uncertain. Just try to figure that out first.
Yeah.
Because once you completely embrace that this is what brings you joy, you won't have to worry about the vacillating between like, oh, should I stay? Should I go?
100%. And I think that was another question I wanted to ask. Like, what would that look like for gainers? Because I imagine it would be elements of managing health. I would imagine the elements of even career building, because I think a lot of times when we look at gainers from the perspective of what we know of them, which is being a fat fuck in their bedroom. But when you want to be a career person, like how do you maintain growth while looking professional and scaling your wardrobe and dressing in a certain type of way and, eating certain styles of food for lunches if that's the social game you have to play, and, navigating public transport and walking through busy city centers as a business person, and, just all those kinds of things. I think it would be really interesting to see what elder and more established members of the community could offer younger members of the community.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that mentorship would be different for gainers and non-gainers?
I mean, possibly. Like, if you are a gainer and a younger gainer is seeking you out for advice, you're probably going to tailor your advice for that person's lifestyle as a gainer. Like, you might be able to tell them, like, I've shopped at this store because it carries up to this size. I've tried this particular supplement before and it worked for me. I have eaten this amount of calories in this day for this amount of time and I've gotten this result. Like, that's probably the kind of advice that they would tailor for a gainer. For an encourager or a non-gainer, it could be like, well, what's going on in your life? Like, if they say something like, well, I just don't know, I don't feel like comfortable out in public being seen with an overweight partner, like, my advice would be like, look, hun, people are going to talk shit no matter what. You cannot stop people from talking shit. It's a lifelong thing. You have to decide if they're talking shit is going to ruin anything for you. Because if you are secure enough and you're happy, you have joy, and you love your partner, you should not give a flying fuck if anyone is snickering behind your back. Because does that change anything? Does that prevent you from getting fucked? Does that prevent your bills from getting paid? Does that prevent you from being able to do what you want to do? No. So who gives a shit?
Oh my God, can we circle back just for a brief moment to the emotional release and freedom that comes from just choosing not to give a fuck? Not even the whole, like, I don't know, because, like, I've been that person, that anxiety-ridden mess.
Yeah, I have too.
How do I not give a fuck? I give too many fucks. I don't know how to not give a fuck. And what someone doesn't tell you is you actually need to just get to a point in your life where you can choose to not give a fuck, and it brings you, like, a giddy amount of joy to start saying no to people, and saying no for the most egregiously stupid reasons. Like, can you just no? Don't even let them finish the sentence. Just say no.
That happened to me just yesterday, or Friday rather. I was at work and I had already been there for 8 hours, and they were like, "Can you stay till 7 p.m.?" And I said no, and they're like, "Why?" And I said, "Because I don't want to." I left it at that. I'm like, I am going home when my shift is over. So sorry for you, but bye-bye.
100%. From a work perspective, I think that comes from getting to a place in your life where you understand, I'm good enough at what I do that to not say yes to extra work isn't going to threaten my ability to work.
Oh.
And also, if that did, for whatever reason, come to a point where they're like, we decided to fire you because you're not a team player. Okay, fine, great. I will literally take my ambivalent attitude that is 100% appropriate to somewhere else that isn't going to give me grief and guff for it. And that's fine too. Like, so much of life, I think, is people in the world positioning themselves to you by going, if you don't treat me by sucking my dick at every goddamn second of the day, your entire existence on this earthly plane is under threat. And it's like, no, getting to a point where you're just like, I'm unbothered by you, and your dick is not satisfactory regardless. So I say no.
I wanted to add that the other thing you have to remember about, like, being out in public and the way that people are and everything, you have to understand that all of the things that you're insecure about, so is everybody else. Like, everyone else has their own shit. A lot of times people don't care. They're not paying attention to what you're doing. And if they are paying attention, oh yeah, look at those fat fuckers, whatever. Oh, look, shiny thing. Me have to go over there now. Like, it's that kind of thing. Like, it's not something that's going to linger. It's something that's going to be like, I went out to a food festival yesterday. I was at the Feast of the Assumption in Little Italy, Cleveland, and I was stuffed to the brim. I had eaten so much fucking food that day, and my belly is just jutting out in front of me. I'm not wearing like something too revealing. I'm wearing a t-shirt, but you can obviously see that I have made a day of it. And I didn't even try to suck it in. I didn't care, because I'm surrounded by other people, and plenty of them were fat. Plenty of them were fatter than me. So it's like, if I'm going to get upset that one person a rando on the street is going to single me out and point at me and laugh. I'm just like, well, they must be doing that to everybody. They're just that kind of person. So it doesn't matter.
You know, there's an interesting story about Bob the drag queen who sat down with a hater. Someone had commented on one of their videos, and I cannot remember if this person used like racist language with them specifically, or if this person was just like, piece of shit, fucking ugly, talentless, fucking kill yourself, you know, like that kind of troll shit. And Bob had direct messaged this person in the reply and said, are you okay? Because I get the feeling by the fact that you went in on me the way that you did for no good goddamn reason that you've got some shit happening in your life. So talk to me. And she sat down with this person, and this person like bawled their eyes out because they were like, I got let go from my job and I got broken up with my partner and all of these things. And it's understanding, like, in one way, yes, what they said wasn't okay. But also when you unpack what this person's going through, it's like, it's really quite interesting that like, when people dish out hate, they usually very genuinely have a lot of crap going on internally that they are not prepared to deal with. And if you say the right things and like reflect it on them in the right way,
yeah, the walls crumble.
Implosion. So, you know, that's another thing, like just kind of like going through life. But again, you learn those things through mentorship a lot sooner in life than having to like deal with your own trauma and try to work it out for yourself.
And I've said it once and I'll say it again because I need to print it on a t-shirt or something like that. When it comes to any insecurities you may be facing in public, or you're afraid that being overweight will immediately diminish how attractive you are, live by this motto. If you don't want to fuck me, then don't fuck me. But somebody wants to fuck me.
Yeah. And I'm in the mood to find them. So move along, bitch. You are taking up space and time in my day to give me your bullshit. Don't need it. In your opinion, does mentorship need to be in person?
It doesn't have to be. I would assume that that's probably the most effective way, because you get to see this person, you get to really get into like a, when you guys, like if you and your friend, you're just chilling, you're not really doing anything in particular, but you're just shooting the shit. Like that's a great opportunity for some great conversations and whatnot, but it doesn't have to be in person. You and I obviously don't do it in person. It's just all about investment. How invested are you to his friends? How invested is this, relationship where you're both learning something from each other? Online, yeah, it's going to be tricky, because in our sphere, you will encounter more often than not people who are just after something. They're after a good time. They're after pictures of you or videos of you where they want you to talk about something really specific, or they want to role play with you. It can be hard, but it's not impossible. There are great people in our community who are more than willing to talk with people about anything, not just the fetish, but just life in general.
You just got to find them.
Yeah.
Listen, if you are interested in either having Tim as a mentor or approaching us about, some kind of mentorship discussion, you can contact us at thiccradio@gmail.com and we'll chat to you that way. But I do want to ask, like, how do you go about becoming a mentor? Like, I know you've said you're sort of in that frame of life now where like you're at a certain age and like you're willing to have those conversations. But let's say you've decided, I want to become a mentor. Boom. That's
like officially. I mean, there really are no official mentor positions. I mean, there are certain things like over here in the United States, like they have the Big Brother and Big Sister program where you apply and they send you a kid, usually who's in the foster system, who feels like, out of place, like they don't have someone to talk to. You kind of become like a sibling mentor to them. That's a very official thing. But I mean, if you want to be a mentor, you simply declare yourself one, and you start espousing your life experiences and your aphorisms, and whether people are listening or not,
But I mean, I suppose that's really the question. Like, if that's the position you're in, you're at that frame of life, you want to be a mentor in that kind of a capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you go about becoming one?
There's really no process. It's just how you feel. And like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, if somebody, okay, so like, I'll go back to yesterday. We had two younger people who showed up. They were like 21 and 25, right? And I explained to them what I would like to have happen in the Cleveland community. I was like, I would really like to create a space where, I just want us to meet up with each other, talk. It's safe. Like you can form friendships. Like we can come up with ideas for things to do. And that was kind of my just approach with the two young ones. I was like, I'm a resource. Like I might not be the best resource, but I am one. So if you have questions or if you want things like done a certain way, or if you have suggestions about what we could do, just let me know. I opened up the channel of communication. So that's really the first step. Be open to the communication.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think even from my perspective, I'm obviously still in that phrase, like, and maybe there are people who I could mentor, being at my frame of life, but I know that I recognize I'm still looking for mentors more than I am looking to mentor myself. But it's like you say, it's being open to it. It's having conversations with people, finding opportunities to learn more about someone. And when I consider like what I look for in a mentor, I'm looking for someone who can be emotionally vulnerable with me.
Yeah.
Because I need to know that I can be emotionally vulnerable with you when I come to you with potential things. And I think that's quite a good thing. I think kind of like what we were hinting at before, a lot of us probably are mentors or are in mentorships with people without really thinking about it and not officially declaring it. Yeah. Though I do think like considering things from a more like not standardized, but like quote unquote official perspective, like I will mentor you or you will mentor me, means that there are more specific opportunities to talk about certain situations or achieve a sense of personal growth and progress that maybe wouldn't happen if things were kept so casual,
And I was going to say, you look for mentors your entire life. You never don't, search for that. Like even at this point, like, I have some leather daddies that are mentors to me, not in an official capacity, like they're not training me, but like I go to them to see the example of what it means to be successful, older, established, capable, and happy.
I love that. Do you feel like there's any aspect of mentorship that we haven't really touched on today?
Oh, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, as much as a mentor, if you want to mentor someone, you have to be like keep the channel of communication open and be willing to receive it. The other person has to be willing to give it as well. Like if you are a person who is seeking a mentor, try not to be closed off with them. Like I understand being protective of yourself and being slow to warm up, but at least have the desire to do so that you're not wasting both of your time. Like be willing to go down that road with them, and you'll open up slowly but surely, and you may make a friend that you'll have for life, and that you'll be like, I can't believe, I don't know how I lived my life before you were in it, kind of thing.
Well, I feel that way with you.
Oh.
But I think that's a nice place to end the episode. So I guess that's a wrap for this week here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a good review. If you liked this episode, the podcast, or just us in general, share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and beefyfrat at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and beefyfrat at thiccymouse. And you can also look us up on TikTok at Thicc Radio or our website, www.podpage.com. And if you want to submit any questions or ideas for episodes, you can reach us at thiccradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Anchor app podcast produced by Stan and Thicky Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by Stan.
Our artwork is provided by Lokitu.
Our theme song is provided by Spotify.